1 minute, Mr. Ellison.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, you're good.
6:35, and I'm calling to order the special meeting of the Williamsport City Council, June 30th, 2020, and we're meeting remotely. Our first item is a resolution authorizing the execution of a management contract. Would you read that, please, Mrs. Frank, in short form?
Resolution authorizing the execution of a management contract agreement between the City of Williamsport and Endless Mountain Transportation Authority.
And just for information purposes, this is an item we considered at our last full meeting last Thursday, and it ended up in a 3-3 vote. So will entertain from somebody a motion to reconsider this item.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mackey and seconded by Mr. Paluzzi. That was. Thank you. Motion and a second. Okay. We did discuss this before with Mr. Winder. I'm going to ask Ms. Nagy if she would like to address this.
Sure. So basically, we have had a relationship with Endless Mountain for a number of years, basically back to 2011. We have the same staff that are handling it, but we need to clean up how we have paid that staff. The staff will be doing the same functions that they have done for a number of years. But rather than being paid by Endless Mountain as well as the city, it's a much better and a cleaner, from a legal standpoint, relationship to have them paid for their services from Endless Mountain through River Valley or through the city, and then it be reflected as a stipend in their check. The monies that are being paid are for extra work that goes above and beyond their regular duties. That stipend money would not be considered as far as their city pension money, so that will be paid outside of their regular salary, and that money will be basically for a short term. PennDOT has asked us to do, and we had PennDOT consultants at River Valley today, a time study to see how much time on everyone's day-to-day work schedule that they will be working for Endless Mountain as opposed to River Valley, so that we can really take a hard look at the department to see who is dedicated to Endless and who is dedicated to River Valley. That time study cannot be a short-term study. It needs to be kind of a longer-term study because the workload for certain individuals that work for the city ebbs and flows. Like, for example, Nicole is doing something, each week, but when it comes time for the Endless audit, she might be spending a little bit more time dealing with Endless than others. Todd, for instance, might be spending more of a percentage of his time on a week-to-week basis that's pretty consistent and Endless. So that time study will really help the city to figure out the actual cost, as well as if the charge to Endless Mountain is fair. Also, one of the reasons this management agreement is important is there are certain facilities that are intertwined and have gotten grant money, such as the call center, to be used as a regional call center to work with Endless Mountain. So at least for the short term, and we do have only a 1-year contract, PennDOT as well as myself and River Valley are really looking hard at this relationship and what the equities are there. So it would be pretty tough at this juncture to unwind it and not continue with the management agreement for this year while we continue with all the studies. Prior to this year, there had never really been any time studies. It was difficult to figure out how staff allocated their time. So that's all changing now, not only at the request of U.S. City Council and the city administration, but PennDOT has made this request for a good 18 months, so we're finally complying with what their requests were. So at this point, we're fairly intertwined, so the management agreement is very important to the region. It's just a matter of how those payments are allocated will be better fine-tuned as we proceed into the fall of this year. So hopefully that kind of gives you an overview of where we are and why we've had to change the pay structure a little bit.
Thank you, Ms. Nagy. And by way of just refreshing the numbers, it was $91,000 for 5 employees, I believe, which if you do the math, it works out to 18,200 per. Any questions from council? Mr. Yoder.
Yeah, I'll chime in here. I was one of the 3 nay votes on this one. Jill, I certainly appreciate the information you just provided. A little bit more of the backstory is certainly helpful and very much appreciated. I think it ties in with a number of the concerns that I at least had about this agreement, but not necessarily all of them. I mean, in a nutshell, there were really 4 big things in my mind that stuck out. And it's a lack of confidence in the experience levels of a number of individuals in this contract. These individuals bring a lot of value to the city in a number of other ways. I'm not convinced that RVT is that. I'm concerned that a number of these individuals are stretched too thin. So the time study would certainly help in that, but we don't have that. And I at least would have been more comfortable seeing that beforehand. Unfortunately, we cannot. We've been asking for that information and some other information regarding that for a number of months and have not gotten it. And while we now have a date, thank you, Mayor Slaughter, of who's going to, and a little bit more clarity in the process of who's going to lead RVT, that was a concern as well on the lack of clarity of the leadership. And to be frank, these are still concerns for me. And thinking about this since Thursday night and, what might help ease some of those concerns, I think some formal oversight by council over the year of this agreement would be beneficial. I think in the form of a quarterly report at the appropriate council meeting would help ease some of those concerns for me. I think we want to make sure, at least I do, that our less experienced individuals in this contract are not only learning fast, but making sure things are done correctly and on time. So I would actually formally make a motion to amend the resolution to add an additional clause, be it further resolved by the City Council of the City of Williamsport that the mayor or designee shall provide a quarterly report to the City Council over the duration of this contract agreement at the appropriate City Council meeting.
There's a motion to amend the
Yep.
resolution.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to amend the resolution. Discussion on the motion to amend.
Mr. Allison, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I can give some additional background on some initiatives that have started. It's not going to change the motion, but just so you know, over the last month, now that we've been able to meet in a little bit more freely in person, I've had all the employees at River Valley do a questionnaire of their day-to-day duties. We hope to have formal job descriptions for all of them in consultation with some of the PennDOT professionals that have been helping us. So we hope to have those formal job descriptions in line by the end of July, barring any additional COVID closures or anything weird that comes up. We've also, the insurance company for River Valley has given funds to formally review all of their policies so that we make sure that that's in line, and that's at no cost to the city. So a lot of these things have been simmering that I've been coming up to work with, as well as with PennDOT consultants, to just further make sure that everybody has a sense of where we are, to make sure the organizational chart for that area is correct, to identify any gaps as far as, what training might be required and things like that. So that's been ongoing. Unfortunately, we kind of started that in March, and then as you know, the world ground to a halt. So that has restarted, and we've been really fast tracking it. All the employees in the public transportation division really turned things around for me pretty quickly as far as giving me what their day-to-day duties are so that we can fine-tune what the department ultimately looks like. So again, I don't know if that was the right time to let council know, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well, that that's all been happening over the last couple weeks.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that information, because that was my question on the motion to amend. We can ask for a quarterly report, but we have to have some kind of context about what we're asking for. A quarterly report can contain anything, but we want some benchmarks or it's not going to be useful information to us. So that's very helpful. The things you've outlined right there would be the exact kind of information that I'd be looking for to be able to make some kind of, to quantify some kind of judgment about the progress that we're making. Other comments from council members? Mrs. Katz.
Yes, I think we all had questions only because of all the new people that are involved with RVT at this point. The lack of experience, I think, was what we were worried about. The other thing that I questioned, Jill, is that Adam Winder stated that several of the people that are working for Endless Mountain and RVT, they're going to be working about 60 hours a week. That's a lot of hours a week for each person. Now, I guess what you were saying, it wouldn't be a continuous 60-hour a week, but come with audits and things like that, you're talking that many hours. Is this approval okay with Endless Mountain and RVT? That's one of the things I question.
So Endless Mountain has approved the format that we have suggested and is before you. They approved it last week, I believe. Adam, the days are blurring together.
Last Wednesday.
We understand and we're watching the time very closely to make sure that we're meeting all of our obligations under the Fair Labor Standards Act. A lot of the people are salaried, so the stipend is appropriate, but we are looking at all of that as we go through this and try to analyze the salaries and see how everybody's doing as far as hours. It's very helpful now that we're allocating the time each day to how this is working out.
Well, I think having a quarterly report would also help us understanding where everything stands with Endless Mountains and also with RVT. I think this would keep us abreast. For us on council, this has been a new program for us. We never really knew what was going on with Endless Mountain. So therefore, this is also a learning curve with us. So I really think having a quarterly report is going to open our eyes to everything that's going on also and educate us with what's going on.
And even today, tonight's council meeting is extremely timely. PennDOT staff worked with RVT to simplify some of their reporting as far as ridership statistics. So it would ultimately be our goal now that they helped to make that a more streamlined process than we've been using for the last 5 years, that we'll even be able to give you monthly reports on ridership data and things like that, because they were able to help us get it in a much more simplified fashion. So a lot of the hours that were being spent, and this goes back many years, not just recently, this is how RVT has been doing it for a very, very long time, how to simplify that data that PennDOT wants. So I'm hoping that their assistance with some efficiencies will be helpful as well.
Well, I think we're all looking for that. We're all looking for making sure that everything is on track, making sure that we don't lose anything in the translations of things. And like I said, also to keep us better informed of what's going on. We've been questioned about Endless Mountain for quite some time and never had the answers.
To Councilwoman Katz's point about us needing educated on the process and everything transportation related, it might be wise for us on council to work with the administration in some kind of context where we can go up to RVT, learn what's going on, so that we have some understanding about things that are going to be reported to us, how everything works. It wouldn't have to be totally in depth, but I think if we're going to be hands-on as council, well, we need to know where we want to put our hands on things, so that we're not spinning wheels or not getting information that we really need. So we might want to put our heads together and come up with a plan to do that. Any other comments from council?
We don't want to interfere with anything. We just want to be educated.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
we don't want to stick our noses into something with any kind of conversation. We just want to know what the laws are, what the regulations are, things like that.
and I think it would be helpful though to see how things operate. Mr. Polizzi.
And I think, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Name.
One of the things that I had discussed with Adam right at the beginning of, not Adam Yoder, right at the beginning of when COVID happened, is the state will pay for board training. It just, not to make anything for myself, but myself and another gentleman that are both of us are PennDOT consultants, do have board training, which is paid for by the state.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're able to meet, RVT can schedule that on behalf of City Council. We could both come up, and that is very much driven on how the transportation funding works, how shared ride works, different data that RVT has to keep. So if council's interested in that, certainly the mayor can reach out to me and we can get that scheduled. I know Mr. Knoll has some time in the summer because we're doing a couple other different trainings for other boards. So that's always there, and it is paid for by PennDOT.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
Thank
great.
you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Mr. Polizzi.
I'm on board with that, by the way, just to.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Spaulding. Now, Mr. Polizzi.
I appreciate that. Just for clarification, Ms. Nagy, said there would be a 5-member management team for this. Can you specify who those members would be, please?
I believe, and I'll make sure that I'm not incorrect on that. I know that Todd Wright has day-to-day responsibilities. Nicole Farr has financial responsibilities. Certainly, I think Brett Kelly and Adam, I'll let you fill in the gaps in the two because I don't deal with every single human up there.
The 5 individuals would be Nicole Farr, Todd Wright, Chris Clark, the fleet manager for RVT, oversees the fleet service up there. Kendra Brown, she is payroll. And then the final one is Josh Warfel with IT.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to get some clarification so I know exactly who's, what responsibility each person has. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you, Mr. Polizzi. Other comments or questions from council? We're still on the motion to amend. Mr. Slaughter.
Just we thought it was prudent to bring this before you. I know IMTA is not new, but as you all said, and even during my time on council, it was never really brought to us prior.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with what has been said, that it does need to come before you all so you know the contracts that we're dealing with and that you all are dealing with and the city is dealing with. So that's why, as we're reviewing all of these contracts, some that may have not come before you for quite some time, why we are bringing them before you now is for that exact reason, so that you do know what is transpiring, what's happening, and you're up to speed with everything. So.
Thank you, Mayor Slaughter. Any other comments on the motion to amend? Did you get that language, Mrs. Frank?
I did, and if not, Adam can email it to me.
Yes, Mr. Banks.
I apologize for my tardiness. I was having technical difficulties. This is a motion to amend to require a quarterly report. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Motion to amend the resolution.
Thank
Not the contract. or anything. Yep. Any other questions on the motion to amend? Hearing none. Mrs. Frank, please, on the motion to amend.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
yes,
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Mr. Allison.
Yes, motion passes, and thank you, Mrs. Frank. So now we'll move back to the original motion to reconsider the item, which is the total execution of the management agreement. Is there further discussion or questions on the entire contract from anybody on council? Hearing none, seeing none, Mrs. Frank, on the motion to reconsider.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
yes,
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Mr. Allison.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Thank you, Ms. Nagy, for your input, and Mr. Winder, and Mayor Slaughter. I think this was, while we had to have an extra meeting to do this, I think we accomplished a whole lot in this short meeting. And I thank council for your good questions and ideas. And I think we made some progress, and good progress that's going to bear some fruit in the future with the things that we discussed about doing beyond this. And we're going to have some information and some knowledge that we've lacked over the years and desperately needed. And it's going to make us a better city government and a better city, I believe. We don't have any other items to look at. So are there any, well, I have announcements. The next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be held on Thursday, July 9th, 2020, 6:30 p.m. And it'll be remotely on Zoom again. Before we adjourn, are there any other items from council members? Any items from the administration? None. Any comments from the public, Mr. Lubin?
There are no public comments to the email.
Okay, no public comments tonight.
And Mr. Allison, don't forget to announce executive session.
I was just about to do that. We're gonna, before adjournment, I need to say we're gonna have an executive session to discuss legal matters. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.